5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Starting the webinar. VRM is a very important project for Victron Energy. We commit significant resources to it. A huge amount of the team use it daily. We rely on it to diagnose systems and to troubleshoot what's going on in the field with our products. I personally use it myself in my home. Victron's been powering my house with electricity for over a decade, and VRM is part of my daily experience. My name, if you haven't met me before, is Guy Stewart. I work on the Victron community, so I answer a lot of questions and answers that people have about community and about Victron. And VRM is a huge part of how I do my job. Understanding power systems at a low level and being able to get full diagnostic information is critically important when working with power systems. And I believe, VRM is evidently one of the best platforms in the market for this. But we are continuing to push forward. We receive continuous updates from our sales managers via the distribution channel about the requirements for VRM. And I also work with the community to interface some of these requests to the development team. We're lucky enough to have some of the development team with us here today. Alex has joined the meeting and he'll be answering Q&A and also presenting some information as part of the agenda. Matthias, the Managing Director and CEO of Victron, is also attending today. He'll also be answering questions that you might have about Victron, and he'll also be presenting some of the most requested features that we've had for VRM, which we're pleased to announce today. So starting slow, but still good to know. This is an interface for Victron Connect. Now, you're probably very familiar with Victron Connect. You may or may not know that you can actually interface devices remotely via VRM through Victron Connect. This allows you to program things like MPPTs that previously you had to be on site to do. Now, this is not a new feature as such. We announced this last year at our last VRM update, which is about 12 months. This is becoming an annual meeting event now. But what is new is the Victron Connect Instant Readout, which is now also available via VRM. So you can connect to a site remotely through Victron Connect and see the instant readout data for those connected devices. You can see that instant readout on the right-hand side there, those small notes. This ability to remotely access a site as if you were there is an incredible advantage if you manage fleets of systems, but it's also a convenience if you're just an individual and you need to keep an eye on your system remotely. So I encourage you to get comfortable with this feature. It's extremely powerful. We have a new product on the market, the Global Link. This is now many thousands of units in the market. And previously, before the Global Link, you needed to have a GX device, such as a color control or a Serbo GX, in order to access VRM. Yeah, there were some niche options for people who wanted to do modifications. We made the platform available for them too, but this is a first-party Victron product. And essentially what the Global Link does is reduce the barrier to entry to VRM for small systems. So systems that are based on V-Direct devices, such as a Smart Shunt or an MPPT charge controller, or both, can now connect through VRM, and through a one-way push system, they can send data every 15 minutes via the LTE-M remote network. Now, how this differs from a GX device is this LTE-M SIM card is built in and comes prepaid for 5 years. So if you have a small remote system within the LTE-M footprint, which is similar to the 4G network, but slightly larger and definitely lower power, this device can give you the fastest and cheapest way in. A key advantage of this product is there's no customization or configuration that's required. It's essentially plug and play. We're seeing these products become more and more rolled out into the market. It's regional specific, so please check to make sure it's available in your area before you get involved. But if it is suitable for you, it's an incredible product. Another big new feature, and this is for accessibility into VRM, is a new interface to VRM. So previously you've had to visit the website. Now we have widgets. Now these are different to the widgets that you'd seen previously in the advanced screen in VRM. These are the VRM app widgets. So you're able to open up your phone, add a widget as you have before, or maybe you haven't. If you have a smartphone, it's possible to add these little app-like things after downloading the VRM app. And then on your device home screen, you can add these colorful displays that provide at-a-glance data of your system. Now, this is super powerful. So normally in VRM, okay, maybe you're looking at the dashboard or you have it set up for your system. You want to do some diagnostics or something, but actually a huge part of maintaining a reliable power system is just keeping an eye on it and making sure there's nothing unexpected or untoward on it, making sure your batteries are recharging properly and you're getting sufficient solar, the state of charge is healthy. Now you can do it without having to make the special effort to go into VRM or to set up alerts or alarms, although we'll have more about that too. That's also important. But this allows at-a-glance controls for your system and makes it very accessible and very easy to make managing your power system just an easy part of your life. It doesn't have to become something you have to do or become very committed to. There's a huge suite of available widgets available depending on the type of system you've got. They're available big and small as a single tile, all the way up to these big dashboards. There's also some controls. If you've got an ESS system, for instance, you can now easily tell your system to charge. So if you're expecting a storm to come in, you can adjust your system to keep the batteries charged from the grid and make sure you've got sufficient supply in case the grid power gets cut out. If you've got one of our vehicle charging systems, there's a new product to the market as well. You can also control the charging on that. You can force your car to charge, for instance, or set the charge current limit. Also, you can see how much charge has gone into the battery of the car and how much power is going in right now and how long it's been charging for. If you've got tanks or temperature sensors as part of your system, having these available at a glance is, again, super useful. Maybe not something you'd normally go and look at especially, but if you've got the refrigeration, or in my case, I have freezers in my house when I keep food frozen, having that information just available on the dashboard of my phone, on the home screen of my phone, is a great peace of mind. To activate the VRM app widgets, there's a few steps depending on your device. We have a step-by-step YouTube video that's available. To find the YouTube video recording, just Google VRM app widgets and you'll see a blog post explaining this new feature, and you can then see the video. Another relatively old feature now, but still extremely powerful, is our VRM fleet overview. So we now have more customers with hundreds to thousands of systems in VRM, and we're thinking about how we can make this as easy and powerful for them as possible. One feature that is new, and it's worth noting because it was actually a feature request from our previous VRM webinar last year, is the totals at the bottom. So if you're a fleet operator, you can now get total data for your entire fleet. Also useful to keep an eye on and just cool to see how much power is under your control. Another new feature, dashboard controls. Now you saw a peek of this, another perspective of this inside the app widgets. It's also possible to get some of these controls inside the VRM dashboard. Now, previously, you would have had to get into the remote console to access some of these controls. This is making this easier and easier to manage your system from where you are. Dashboard controls are only available when real-time data mode is enabled and two-way communications are enabled. It's important to note that real-time data does consume considerably more bandwidth and data consumption when you're watching the site. So when you're not watching the site, it's much the same, but when you load it up, instead of just getting one packet of data every minute or 10 minutes or 1 hour, it's sending a packet of data every few seconds. It's extremely useful to be able to see what's happening to the system in real time, but just conscious to be aware of that there is an extra load in the bandwidth for that. Here's an example of the generator controls available. So now, yes, you can start your generator from the dashboard if you need, or adjust the auto start controls. The similar controls are available for ESS, where you can keep the battery charged or set to optimized or battery life mode. Another new feature we have is event logs. This is a very long demanded feature for system operators, especially installers, who want to be able to keep track of what's been happening to the systems under their responsibility and to see what changes have been made. It's already enabled for all systems out there, and you can see historical data that we've already been keeping. It's just a new interface on some data that was already there. We're still expanding the scope of what's captured by this, and some of that may only be available going forward, but we're definitely keeping an eye on what's happening with the event logs. And we have other, although not to be announced today, other features coming as well in a similar vein to help support those that are operating fleets of systems to be able to better control what system settings are and when they were changed and who they were changed by. We're definitely aware of this as a request. So, power user feature coming to VRM, extremely worthwhile knowing about. This is in the advanced section, so obviously those that know what they're doing, but the ability to create custom widgets. Now, custom widgets have been out for some time, and already we've had 19,000 custom widgets created by our users. Now, that's over 250,000 users in total, so incredibly popular already. To create a custom widget, opened up the advanced section of VRM. You can then select the widgets tab or widgets button on the right-hand side. Scroll to the bottom of the list. Above that, that'll open up a drawer from above. You'll see in that drawer the commonly selected widgets that we've pre-designed. But from there, at the bottom, you'll see the option to create a custom widget. Custom widget will present you with this somewhat daunting pop-up. It takes some time to understand what's going on here. Firstly, you can set the name of the widget. You can set the axis, the y-axis, and that's a new feature too. Even to those that have already tried custom widgets, we now have the ability to set a custom y-axis, and I'll show you a bit more about that in a second. You select your device, and then the parameter that you wish to log. This can be extremely useful if you want to see comparative results for different values across a system. So you might want to see what's happening to the system voltage as the system current changes, or what happens to the system voltage as the state of charge is changing. The ability to graph those two or more, you can graph up to 5 individual lines on the same graph. We're looking to extend that further to help those with 3-phase systems who want to see all phases on one graph and then all phases of current, for instance, all phases of voltage, all phases of current on the one graph. But for now, it's 5. And from there, you can then control what you can see and begin to do some analysis. A new feature for today is the ability to set custom y-axes. This is our most requested feature from the custom widgets. Here you have 3 options. The default y-axis, we do our best to guess what we think you want to see and the scale of those axes and how many data points. The ability to individually set y-axes for each element, or the ability to set one master scale y-axis for all parameters. That master scale axis for all parameters is extremely useful when you want to drill into minor detail. And normally our automatic y-axis scaling might not show you the resolution you want at the band that you want to see. So for example, if you have a narrow voltage band, or especially where it's useful, for instance, if you have a narrow band of temperatures across multiple temperature sensors and you want to see variation among that, it allows you to control and zoom in on that y-axis dimension. That's extremely useful if you want that detail visually. So that's all from me at the moment. I'll pass over to Matthijs Veda.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Matthijs. Yeah, I'm the managing director of Victron. And it's quite an honor to be presenting the push notifications. As Guy already said, that's a feature that has been requested for a long time already. And yeah, I understand why. I want it myself as well for my boat. And yeah, I'm presenting it, but there's been quite some effort going into it by the developers. It's the El Nino team. Well, they're here. It's Alex, Irene, Tom, Christo, Nikolai. Now they're here in the panelists. Maybe I'm even missing someone. And it was a bit of a challenge to make it properly work, and also easy to diagnose if it doesn't, because this is not just some push notification telling you that there's a new song on Spotify, for example. It's not the type of notification that if you miss one, that's all right, at least for most. In this case, it needs to work super reliably. You need to be able to test it. You need to be able to see if your phone is properly configured to receive push notifications. And I'll take you through the details. So this is what we mean with push notifications. What you're seeing is a phone, and what you're seeing is the notifications that most of you will be used to that occur when someone sends an email or something else. And now the VRM app and the VRM portal can push you a notification when there either is a problem, an alarm, or when that goes away again. Here in the example, we're showing both. The bottom one is the one that was received first when there is a low voltage alarm coming from the battery monitor. And it's also showing on which site it is. It's on which installation. In this case, that installation is named boat with generator. Just an example. And then 1 minute later, there's also the recovery. Yeah. So with the push notifications, we also added web push notifications. Those are browser notifications. Less used, I think, but still added. And with that, we now have 3 types of notifications. So in case something happens on your installation, there are 3 ways to notify the users. One is by email. It's the one that already existed. And new are these push notifications coming through the VRM app, and also web push notifications coming through a browser. So here, yeah, I show you the page, which you're familiar with. Nothing has changed here. But this is this is the page that defines what alarms are sent as a notification. So the type of alarms sent via push are the same as via email. And here, well, you have the communication monitoring. Here it says alarm armed, which monitors if the system is still connected. If not, the VRM portal will send an alarm. It monitors all the default alarms that we pre-programmed into the system. And then for this side, someone configured an alarm when the input voltage is going over or under 228 volts. So then here I will explain you how to set up the push notifications. Well, you need to install the VRM app. either on a phone or a tablet, and also on Apple laptops, you can install that. And for those that have already installed the VRM app, it will update, and then next time that you open it, it will ask you for permission. At least on Android, it does that. Sorry, on iOS. So as soon as you have it installed on your iOS phone, when you open it, it asks you for permission, just like shown here in the picture. And on Android, Alex, what happens on Android if you install it?
On Android is enabled by default, the
okay, so
notifications.
just having the VRM app installed on Android is enough.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, great. Now that's nice. And then lastly, on your phone or elsewhere on a browser, you can navigate to preferences and then to notifications. Then you see the page of which I made a screenshot and added in the presentation here on the right. And there on the bottom, it says iPhone M. Here, I can draw that for you. Here, spotlight. Wonder, probably you'll see a little red dot. And there it shows all devices that are listed to receive the push notification. So I've only installed the app on my iPhone. And if I would now install the app also on a tablet, it would add the tablet too. So there you can see which of your devices are registered to receive the push notifications. And then to make sure it works, we added the test button. That's here, up higher. And if you click that, a test notification will be sent. So with that, I'd like to hand over to Alex, who's going to give a short demo.
Sure. Thank you. I'm Alex. I'm part of the VRM development team. Today, I'm going to demonstrate what Matthijs just explained to you. For that, I am going to share my screen. On the left side of my screen, I have my phone streamed to my computer, and on the right-hand side, it's a normal browser. On my phone, I already installed the VRM app and allowed push notifications. And now if I open the app and go to a newly added menu, which is located in the main menu under preferences and then notifications, we see the screen that you just saw in the slides. In here, you can check if everything is set up correctly for your phone by checking if the toggle is green, and also seeing all the other devices registered. In this case, I have 2 other Android phones registered for push notifications. And we can test this by pressing send a test notification. While you are in the app, the notification shows as a banner in the app at the top, as a blue banner. When you are not in the app, it shows as a pop-up at the top and on your lock screen as well. Now, if we move over to desktop, we have the same menu under preferences, notifications, and here we can see some information about how to install the app if you don't have it installed already, as well as a toggle for enabling web notifications. So if we click this, now we are able to receive notifications on our browser as well. So if we would test that, we see that we receive a test notification, and these are some previous notifications that I received before, so recovery and problem. If we move back to the phone, we can see the same information on our lock screen. The test notification I just sent, which we can swipe away already, as well as the other 2 notifications that I received before starting this webinar. First, there was a problem, and recovery. So the installation is back to normal. That's all from my side. That was the demo. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, in the end, it's pretty simple. It's just push notifications with what many people are familiar to. And so this is also the last bit of information that we want to share. And then we have time for questions. So let's see if there are any questions that we can answer live. Guy, have you read through the questions already?
Yeah, I have a question I can answer live. So I mentioned that using the real-time data mode increases the data consumption of VRM considerably while you're live with that. The question was how much? Yeah, with lots of things in VRM, depends on the system and how much data is being pushed through. But for my system, which includes several MPPTs, inverter charger, ESS system, ACPV, considerable and large robust system, I was looking at around 150 megabytes per day. That's we normally consider around 150 megabytes per month for a normal VRM system that's doing a 15-minute update. So it's a considerably larger data load. So it's good to be aware of that. That was one question in the chat. Should also say that's with me leaving that open for that whole day. When I'm at home, I've got VRM open all the time. I'm just in there all the time. So it's always real-time streaming my data.
Great. Let's see. Yeah, I saw one. Can the system event logs be cleared so that during install, any events during testing can be reset and leave the system in a clean state? That's a great suggestion. I don't think that's currently possible, right, Alex? It's not.
Yeah, that's not possible, but it's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Of course, we will have to balance who can actually clear the event log.
Yeah,
Because,
and we put in a message.
yeah.
The first message then is system event log cleared by name, on date, and then.
It does sound like a good suggestion, yes.
Yeah. Really
Yeah,
nice.
question for you, Alex, on that. Currently, if a test technician or something is setting up the system, well, they do lots of things when they initially set it up. There'll be all sorts of alarms potentially in there that are not relevant to the system, but were set up during the configuration. We recommend that if the users want to give a clean slate, or the installer wants to give a clean slate to their user, they can delete the site from VRM and then start again fresh. That would be another way to do that now. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, nice. I'm reading through the questions. Yeah, there's one from Rob Mason saying they have a large fleet. Here, I'll click the answer live. Yeah. And not all units have the dash controls appearing on them. Rob, I assume you mean the real-time controls. And then you ask, yeah, do we need to update something? Maybe. It's hard to say this from a distance, of course, without seeing the systems. But one thing I do is make sure that all the GX devices are up to date. So those are your servos or color controls. And the latest version is v9.92. And then there are two settings related to that. One is VRM two-way communication, which is necessary to do remote firmware updates.
There is also a feature if you still want to have this enabled on the GX device, but want to control this data consumption or access to this feature. It's also possible within VRM itself, inside the preferences for the site, to enable or disable real-time communication. So maybe this was turned off at some point. If it otherwise looks like everything else is set up correctly, make sure that control setting inside VRM is enabled as well. Or disable it if you don't want it.
Nice. See a suggestion to ask irradiation sensor values on the dashboard. That's a nice suggestion. There's not too many systems using irradiance sensors, to be honest. But if you have one, to then see your output from your solar system.
It's already on the advanced spec.
Yes.
So it would only be relevant for an off-grid system that is fully charged, so the MPPT is throttling.
No, yeah, or to see that your panels are performing properly. So when the MPPT is not throttling, to see if your output from your panels is in line to what you'd expect.
Yeah, but then you would have to clean your sensor at the same time as your panels.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's less work, but yes. All right, yeah, I'm reading through the questions. Yeah, here's one, bit hardware related, but what's the difference between a Serbo GX and a Tank 140? So the Serbo is the monitoring device that connects to the Victron equipment and to the internet. And it has 4 tank inputs, which are resistive. So that's typically in Europe 0 to 180 ohms. And in the US, it's 300 ohm down to 80 or something from the top of my head. The GX Tank 140 is an accessory to the Serbo, which adds 4 more tank inputs, either voltage or current type tank senders. So 2 reasons to add the GX Tank 140. One is if you have tank senders other than resistance type, and the other one is to expand beyond the 4 inputs that the Serbo itself already have. And that way you can go up to 12 or 16. And typically a large yacht might have 8 to 12 different tanks, water tanks, diesel tanks, black water tanks, and so forth. And that's why we have the GX Tank 140. Yeah, Home Assistant. The question is, do you have an integration for Home Assistant or have plans on developing one? Well, it is already possible to integrate with Home Assistant, but for that you need to do some configuration work or other work. And these questions are for now at least best asked on the modification section on community. So right now there's no clean click to install solution for Home Assistant, and it is something we're looking at. There are no immediate plans or deadlines or expected dates that we make it available.
Yeah, I can maybe add a bit on that. On the community, on the modification section in the community, there is community maintained integration. It's not official, it's not maintained by us, but it works. People are using it, so you could try that.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and what you're saying, a native integration would be nice. Indeed, that would be nice. And certainly at some point, we'll have that as well. It's the eternal challenge with limited resources and 100,000 ideas and wishes also by ourselves, which comes.
Might be a good idea now to also mention that next week, if you check the Victron Professional site for the events, we have another webinar coming up. It's not about Home Assistant, it's about Node-RED, but I would imagine there's some crossover between those that would be interested in learning about Node-RED, which is the advanced customized programming for your GX device through VRM and locally, and Home Assistant. So if you're interested in that sort of topic, please get onto Victron Professional, register for that Node-RED webinar next week, and you'll be in much better company, I think, to learn more about more customizable options in the Victron range.
I see one from Jan Wakwel. Hi, Jan. Nice to see your name again. It says trying to enable notifications on iPad doesn't work, and it gives an error about Safari. Perhaps that's something Alex can look for in the questions and take a screenshot and check later. And if you have any issues with the notifications, then please ask on community. There is already a question, a placeholder question made by Guy, and we'll be monitoring that. Well, Guy will, together with the VRM developers, to see if there's any issues remaining to be worked out regarding the notifications. So the question is, if the system knows how much sun is expected for the next day by getting that from some internet service, there are various services that can tell you irradiation forecast. I think that's the official word for that. And then the system can also check on the internet what the electricity prices are. There are more and more regions where consumers can have variable electricity prices, varying by the hour or by the day or by 15 minutes. And then make the system smart with regards to when to charge the batteries, when not, when to discharge the batteries even, when to use the power from the sun. And yes, we're working on that. It's a bit too early to go into details, but all of that is being worked on quite hard. And it's one of the, I think it's the next big technical feature that we can and should be making around all this. Yeah, good one. Thanks, Christo. All right, reading through again. Yeah, one from Nigel asking if we have an option to have more than one GX touchscreen to a Serbo GX, specifically for boats. Not anytime soon. From a hardware point of view, that's quite a challenge. What we are doing is improving our integration with MFDs. So we already have an MFD app, which works quite nicely. And the next version will work far more nicely still. So if you have multiple MFDs, you can use those MFDs. And also there's a bit of a workaround solution. That's to use a tablet with remote console. And then you can get quite a low cost tablet, use remote console. And then I think in latest 12 months from now, we'll have a far better working version of remote console, which makes that experience a lot better still.
Matthias, there's a question here from Pete who's asking, is there a future feature request possible to allow control of relays from the touchscreen display of a GX device?
The answer is yes. It's on the roadmap to control relays from the GX Touch in an easy way. So not hidden far down in the menu, but in a controls pane that's easy to pull up together with the rest of controls like starting, stopping a generator and so forth. Yeah. ESS control. There's
another question here. Perhaps you could answer live. Would it be possible to see data from the previous years? To limit the amount of data, could only be maybe monthly data. Also using feedback for fine tuning. This represents a lot of data by the end of the year. After 3 months, no one will use the detail. You could provide averages or something like that with less granularity. That's from David Renal. Yeah. I'll say perhaps first that there is dashboard data available for at least 5 years and maybe longer. So it doesn't provide detailed system data, which you might be after, like in the advanced section. For that, we still have a limit at this stage of 6 months. But to see a full system history in kilowatt hour consumption, in solar production, the dashboard data does go on for a long time. I'll leave to Matthias to mention anything. Yeah, the energy data. So the kilowatt hour and energy data. And also the state of charge, the main system state of charge, that's kept for 5 years. And all the other data only for 6 months. Yeah, and then we've been discussing that to downsample it. But once you start downsampling AC voltage or battery voltage, then it quickly becomes irrelevant. Downsampling DC voltage to one level a day makes it
unusable, then you could downsample it to have a min and a max per day. That would already help. So there are ideas around that, but it's not an easy one to implement. So I don't expect that to arrive anytime soon. For now, if you really want to, and I'm very aware that it's quite a cumbersome thing to do, is once a month, download a month of data and store it in Excel, and then keep that for analysis.
Also outside the scope of this webinar a little bit, but there is also the option to take more control of the data yourself through something like a Grafana dashboard.
Yeah.
We have another YouTube video available from Matthias and myself explaining how to get started with this. It's a fairly straightforward thing to get started with if you're technical and are fine running your own apps and setting parameters in web consoles. It's definitely not for everybody. And of course, I think 99.99% of people are always going to use VRM, but it is a possibility if you're a power user to tap into that. We don't hide the data. We're not greedy with it. We want to make it available to you to do whatever you want to do with it. So that's an option for you. And then of course you're responsible for the custody. Now what I normally hear from that is, okay, great, but I want you to be responsible, Victron, with my data. And to that, we'll try and find a solution that improves the situation. But for now it is the way it is. And no imminent change to that. I see a question here you might be able to answer.
Yeah.
Any plans to add digital inputs or additional relays to the GX device with an additional external I/O box, like with the GX tank?
Yes. The answer is yes. We have such project running, but at the moment it's on hold because a lot of R&D resources are moved to keep production running. With all the shortages, chip shortages and semiconductor issues in general, a lot of R&D projects at the moment are on hold because we need that capacity to overcome shortages and keep production running. But yes, there's I/O extender coming. Then I see a question how to see more tank data on the dashboard. So not just the tank fill percentages, but also capacity, tank remaining, and so forth. Well, I can relate to that question because when I look on the tanks on my boat, I also want to see liters, not percentages, because I know how many liters of water we use a day, depending on who is on the boat and how many people. On various user interfaces and redesigns of user interfaces, we're taking that into account. And at some point, that will also trickle down to VRM for sure. It's a good suggestion, thanks. Because right now it's only percentages, Alex? You know
yes, on the dashboard, yes, but on the advanced page.
On the advanced page, of course, you can see the details.
So I've just seen another question here regarding the Fronius Toro as an AC PV inverter from one of our partners. Until now, and I haven't heard an update to this, Fronius does not consider the Toro to be completely supported in a Victron AC coupled system. So what does work, it's a different procedure than previously, but you can set it up so that the GX device and VRM can receive the data, so you can see production data and things like that. What they haven't done, it's a bigger unit and it requires more testing because it's more power to make sure that everything's working perfectly stable, especially at the point where the AC PV is equal to the load. So the multi is maybe just doing a little bit of production or a little bit of charging or nothing at zero, and that can lead to some effects. They've changed on their end at Fronius some of their firmware interfaces and some of the previous firmware adjustments that solved for this issue, which can be flickers that occur at that point, no longer apply, and you can no longer use the old firmware on the new product. It works to a degree, but I would be very careful assuming full seamless compatibility. If you're familiar with the existing Fronius range, it's usually very good. We don't have confirmation that it's going to be perfect in this. That said, I'm aware of many hundreds of kilowatts out in the field that are working just fine. So some end users and installers have decided to take the risk themselves. But if you do get issues, just be aware that you're going out on your own a little.
Good. Then I saw a question about wind generators. Will Victron do more with wind generators? The answer is one thing we will do, and basically we have done in the past year, is make monitoring of the wind output possible, but then by installing another component. So you have to install, if it's a DC wind generator, you can install a battery monitor or a smart shunt. Smart shunt is most suitable for that. And configure it to be monitoring the output of the wind meter. And then that will be recorded and displayed. And similarly for AC wind meter. But other than that, we're not planning any wind integration or making wind turbine regulators or other similar power electronic hardware.
Question that only perhaps you can answer, Matthias, from DM. asking, are you planning to allow other web portals such as Fronius SolarWeb to get data from the VRM, such as battery state of charge? It'd be nice to be able to use their portal for other things like the Fronius Wallbox to get the state of charge of my Victron system.
But technically, it's already possible. We have the API, but then you'd have to put your VRM credentials in the Fronius portal, and somehow the Fronius development team then has to make it all work. But from our side, I'd say technically it's possible. But I can imagine that for them in the PV inverter market, which is a far higher volume market than the Victron one, that making such more complicated integration would not be the first thing on their priority list. Out of all Fronius installations, the ones that actually have a Victron, and for then you'd want to do something like this, is probably quite small.
So another question from Jason asking, will vConfig be integrated with VRM in the future?
No, not with VRM, but yes with Victron Connect. So our aim, or maybe to use a fancy word, vision, our vision is to keep configuration into Victron Connect, and then monitoring is done on VRM or using a GX device and support, as is control. So control means starting and stopping a generator, setting the input current limit, setting your ESS system to either keep the batteries full because the storm is coming, or to use the battery to optimize your self-consumption. That's control, which is done day to day. But all configuration, typically done by an installer or during installation of the system, is done in Victron Connect. And then at the end, Victron Connect is going to replace more and more features in vConfigure. Already most simpler systems, and that excludes ESS, can be fully configured with Victron Connect. So you don't need vConfigure to set up a multi and quattro when you're using it in a boat or a vehicle, or a backup system that's not using the ESS system. Any others?
Okay. Yes, more. So another question here asking, is the new VRM functionality supported by the API, like the event log?
That's correct again. There are API endpoints for getting all the events, and that's it. You can call that. We also released recently a new API documentation, which is available online. You can search for it if you search for VRM API documentation, and there you can find examples of how to call the API and get the events as well.
Yeah, good.
Thanks, Alex. So I have another question here. Yeah, it's advanced, but let's take the opportunity to ask it because the people who can answer it are actually here. Detlev has a question asking. Oh, I just moved. There it is. Yeah. I have a quick question about readings in Grafana. So far, everything's working great, but I'd also like to integrate the value of daily purchasing from the grid. I can see this value in the VRM portal, but I can't seem to get it into variables in Grafana. This is something that's been calculated on the VRM side, perhaps. That's not,
That's a difficult one too. I think it's just, but from the top of my mind, that's not so easy to fix. And to discuss that here is too technical and too niche.
We tried, Detlev. Sorry.
It's a different type of data feed, calculated on the GX, but not going into Grafana. It'd be a nice one to fix by someone, either inside Victron or outside, but
too niche.
Let's leave it at that.
All right, I have another question here. This one's more common and I'm sure more applicable. Is it somehow possible to customize the VRM dashboard, for example, hiding the state of charge, which may not be reliable in some systems, or hiding various elements? Customizing the dashboard of VRM, what's the company's opinion?
Anytime soon, I'm afraid. It's a challenge to make VRM as good as it is, and to keep moving forward with the speed I want to move forward. And once you add customization, my worry is that it becomes all far more complicated to keep moving. We've put a lot of effort in making the advanced page fully customizable, that you can put the widgets where you want them, at the size that you want, showing the data that you want with the custom widget. So we've put a lot of effort into doing that on the advanced, and I don't see, for now at least, I don't see that coming on the dashboard anytime soon, I'm afraid. Sorry.
So now, as a follow-up feature request from me, which may land back on my desk, what I would like to see is there are some controls, and yes, perhaps the solution to this is using Grafana, but there are some control types that it might be nice to see in the advanced section to allow more customization for those that want it. So in nearly all cases, the graph that you get in the VRM advanced page, perhaps we could have a single number and then you could pull a power and then you could have more control over that. But let's
Right.
just say for now, Grafana is the solution for the people who want that kind of control.
It's a bit niche, to be honest. It's the power users, so it's users we love and embrace. But
Yeah.
most
So
users will not
we-
configure anything. They just look and use. And
Yeah. We already love and embrace them a lot, the
Yeah.
power users. Yeah.
So then there's a question from Peter, if there are any specific features in VRM for the EV charger. Lucian, maybe you can either answer or interrupt me where I'm wrong. So it's showing the information from the EV charger as well as controls. So from VRM, you can easily enable it, disable it, set the charge current, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So all the main features are there already.
And also the same is also available as a widget on your phone, app widget.
If you hold, like tap and hold your screen, you have a plus. And if you search for VRM, you have all the widgets that guy showed.
Yeah.
In here, and one of them is the EVCS widget, which is called EV charging station in here. You can add it and then choose a site. For example, we have to choose an EVCS because he has multiple. So I'll choose this one.
Okay. Choose the EV charger.
Yes, and
And here you are. It's
you
really
can see the
super nice,
information.
Alex. You can
Yeah.
see what it's doing. You can control it.
Yeah.
All straight from the home screen of your phone. It's
Yeah, exactly.
and if you know how to set up in 20 seconds or fast.
Or less.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, and Lucian, Lucian is the one that fought to get attention for these type of widgets. Really cool.
And an inside information soon, Victron Connect on the charging station.
Yeah.
That's coming.
And then these type of widgets for Victron Connect and on your smartwatch and this and that. Endless work. But the other way to say it is endless cool things to make. Which is why this is so much fun.
So the top most requested answer to the question at the moment is about the GX Touch cables. You see this one?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you have a comment on this one about what the solution or recommendation is for these customers?
Now I know there are some extension cables that work, and basically that has been a community effort on Victron community, where people confirm to each other what extension cable works and what extension cable doesn't work. So at the moment, that's your best bet to go in there and look. From our side, this is something we'll look at some point, but right now, the team responsible for that hardware is finishing off a new GX device and doing work to overcome all the chip shortages and otherwise. Out of all our products, the Serbo and the other GX devices are full with semiconductors, microcontrollers and similar. So if there's one product range where we have to constantly battle surprises, decommitments, that's a new word, and other problems, it's that one. Once that's done, we'll look into this cable length issue. I see the point. And thanks for highlighting it, Martijn Verbeek.
I also have an answer for this question. Why not using a simple tablet connected to the IP address of the GX device? I think it's simpler and you can have it anywhere then.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
So another question near the top is Ruby sensors are great. They're well received by the market, very popular. Are there any plans to support other smart integrated products inside Victron? Specifically, a smart power socket to be able to view energy consumption for a particular appliance and turn on and off in Node-RED.
Yes, slowly we are getting there. Hello.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, can't share any details yet. But,
We can say the intent is there. Yeah.
exactly. Let's see.
A good question. Will the remote console be available as an app or maybe a widget? And that would be nice because now if you want to go to a specific system, you have to open up your app, select the correct system, and then go to remote console. Would be nice.
I think that's perhaps a better suggestion to have a widget that has a button which goes directly to the remote call. So it's faster to get there for a certain installation, but also, not on your home screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
good.
should discuss it a bit because the next generation remote console, if the plan works out that I have, then it is an app. It's a WebAssembly running in the browser, which is also why it's then so much faster. And I know Jesus has plans to make Victron Connect show more of a system overview. And so yeah, one way or another, we'll be improving the monitoring user interfaces to get closer to what you're asking. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, and the better VRM becomes, the less you need to use a remote console. Yeah, so with the real-time controls in VRM and the dashboard and the advanced page and everything, the question then is it that you still need to use what do you want to do or look at that you need to open remote console? What is it that is not yet available on VRM itself? There are probably things, it's a question.
I have another question here about a recent change that was made to Venus OS. So the decision was made to no longer show bulk and float and absorption charge states when externally controlled. The user is asking, is there a way to see what the BMS is doing in terms of bulk and float and absorption now, or what do they do?
Yeah, the BMS is not really doing anything. It's giving us a current limit and a voltage limit. And then the devices are either current limited, putting the maximum output power that the battery accepts. That's when they would be current limited, or voltage limited or voltage controlled. And that's when the battery can accept more power, but there is not more power available from the chargers or the sun or due to some ESS algorithm. It would be nice. I noticed the same in various systems that when you see external control and it triggers a question inside of you. You think so it's controlled externally, but now what is it doing and why? So yeah, probably at some point we'll find a solution to make that a bit better.
This was for the VE bus products?
Yeah.
Yeah, because before you could see absorption or bulk.
Yeah, but then it would never go to float. So people were asking, so why does it never go to float? Why is it all the time in absorption? That's why
it does actually when you have a non-controlled battery, I think.
Yeah, okay, but the question was from all the managed batteries. So if you have a managed battery, so a Pylon-Tech, BYD, or Victron Link Smart BMS, the new software shows you BMS controlled and no more details.
The short answer is if the battery doesn't send its status, then you don't know. We don't know either.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there is some data coming. I guess what's missing now is that
what the product is doing also, whether the multi is charging fast or not, or good remark. Thanks.
Yeah, we're definitely considering this.
I think that's the comment. So then next one I see, is there a way to lock the GX Touch so users can't go into it, especially usable for systems that renting out? Right now, not, but coming in several ways. So for the new GX device, there's actually a hardware button on the back that just disables the touch entirely, which is a very simple and effective way. But also in the user interface, we're planning some more fine-grained control to really disable all the settings or doing anything really other than looking at things.
Yeah, so if you've got any error messages that they do get.
Yeah, you still need to be able to click the error message away.
Yeah.
Simply disabling touch is often not enough. Then the UI needs to auto-hide an error message and so forth.
An interesting question, Matthias, if it is possible to deploy the settings to multiple devices through VRM. I know the answer, but it would be nice.
Settings for
all the devices, probably. If you have multiple systems, identical system to deploy the settings to all of them at once.
Yeah, right now it's not possible. Yeah. Now, eventually that will be possible with devices, with products, I should say, where you can do the settings over Victron Connect. It still needs a manual work, but at least the underlying infrastructure makes it possible, because we can store those settings files in Victron Connect. You can apply them to multiple products.
But it's similar to VRM too. You can download remote V configure files and upload them remotely. It's just that you have to go to every installation and press upload remote V configure.
Yeah, instead of pressing one by one to send it to multiple devices.
Yeah, but they then need to be exactly the same and the same firmware version. And
yeah, this is quite a specific case, but I guess what I would like to say is that we're definitely considering how to make VRM more powerful for fleet operators in managing larger and larger systems. So this is something that's going to come up. Even though we might have a specific answer for this specific case, we're definitely thinking about these applications and these use cases for larger operators. If you are thinking of growing with Victron, yeah, we're going to work with you in that.
We do see this need. It's always the case that we have to balance very advanced power users with hundreds, perhaps thousands of installations in one overview, with very advanced needs from data and control, with users that just started with their first solar system and they want to have a clear and simple overview of what their system is doing. It's something we are always looking into to balance the two and provide powerful features as well.
There's a question here asking, is there a plan for a color theme dark mode for GX devices in the future?
Yes, you know the answer, Guy.
Yes, I like to hear from you. Thanks, Thomas. And I don't know exactly what you want to tell everyone, but yes, we are working on. Well, it's obvious now, right? Looking at what's been happening with VRM and everything else that dark mode is coming across, even to the community site as well. I like dark mode, so I'm pushing where I can for this, but it's definitely in the roadmap for the GX devices.
They have several sites in remote locations that can only be reached by helicopter. Yeah, that's also my internal example I use now and then when explaining why something needs to work super reliably or why we want remote this or that, even though it's a lot of work to implement. So that's a nice one, proving that it's not a phantom use case. So the GXs are connected by Ethernet with a failover, and then there's a 4G dongle. And it seems like the Serbo always prioritizes Ethernet. And that can be, I'll make a note on that one and check how that works. Perhaps what you can do, same thing. Please ask it on community. Same question. Guy will probably spot it there. And then I'll make sure we get you an answer.
In the helicopter systems, there are also external, not Victron devices that you can then use to manage redundant fallbacks for different networking interfaces. So your GX will always connect through Ethernet to this external device, and then it'll have multiple interfaces, Wi-Fi, USB to a dongle, another Ethernet interface, and then it will prioritize through pinging and other active measures. And if it doesn't get through, well, it redirects on its side, and then the GX is always connected via Ethernet. So this is a solvable problem now with interfaces, but of course, it would be nice if the GX just did it all itself, but yeah, that is actually the better answer. Thanks for helping me, Guy. And then the brand I recommend there, at least one of the brands I'm familiar with that is really into super reliable connections used also by emergency services worldwide, a lot is Pepwave and Peplink. They make routers, including options for 4G dongles that are suitable for this and have watchdogs and automatic self-reboots and all the things you need for a extremely stable internet connection. I'd recommend to look into that. Still though, welcome to ask the question on community too. Please make a note on the Peplink, Pepwave for any other people that stumble onto the same question, and I'll have a look as well. Yeah, what would be quite nice is if maybe for the blog or something, we find someone who's actually doing this and then documents how it works. And so you have all the information, the product, and there's some stories. That would be
very nice.
That would be a nice application that we could do without requiring a bunch of software development, just finding someone who's already solved the problem with the available resources.
Would be great to have a use case about that. Yeah. And then I see a question about Fisher Panda generators, DC type. Yes, there's work on that. I don't know the exact status. Could even be that it's already released. But if not, then it might take a while. But yes, we're working on supporting DC type Fisher Panda generator.
Another question here, which I've seen several times now, is it going to be possible to control the multi-plus relays from the GX device?
It's the old request. At some point. Yes, it's not so easy technically, and needs work by, so I say it, overly constrained software department. So it's in a long list of other things that are also very wanted. Yeah,
the one particular use case where it makes a lot of sense is for our Easy Solar product.
Yes.
But in nearly all other cases, there's available relays to the GX device already, sometimes several. So there's often a workaround available, except for the case of the Easy Solar, where it's a bit more acute.
I agree.
Matthijs?
And then there's a question, will there be more information shown from a generator on the dashboard? And the answer is yes. That's the one place where at the moment we can improve VRM. And it's work in progress. Some things have been done already, and there's still more to come. Good one to ask.
Yeah. For sure, you'll be seeing improvements on this. It's advanced in the design stage. Implementation is now in. And yeah, we made a big push for the push notifications. We really wanted that to be ready and available. So that has been getting priority. But once now that's completed, the generator controls and other AC input controls as well, also for and reporting for shore power and that sort of thing on the dashboard is definitely very high on the list.
Yeah.
So a question that's rocketed to the top there is regarding Relay 2 on the Serbo GX and the current limitations around the programming through the user interface. So what I'd say, we recently did add a control there for temperature for the Relay 2, but predominantly it's still set as a manual. If you are really keen to get access to that Relay 2, in manual mode, it's possible using Node-RED to do even more powerful things than you can through the interface and control that Relay 2. So I think that is probably the immediate answer today. So yeah, you can set up generator start stops, for instance, through the GX device interface for Relay 1, but for Relay 2 you cannot. And if you really want to have advanced control of Relay 2, then you can do that through Node-RED. If you don't know what Node-RED is, you can find out by attending a webinar next week. I've been registering in Victron Professional for that event. And at the end of that webinar, you'll definitely know if that's for you or not. And it's definitely not going to be for some people. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
So the question from Diego there asking, is it possible to make the remote console pop up bigger? Right now, it's quite small. Yeah, we are working on updating and improving many facets of the remote console. Also, as Matthijs said, getting features out of the remote console into more accessible user interfaces. But then when the remote console is revised in its new form, it'll be more flexible in sizing. As it is now, no, it will not be changed. It's a fixed resolution to match the screen. But improvements will come later.
But if you just want to make it bigger, the easiest way is to just zoom in your browser window and then open the remote console. The resolution will be the same, but the text will be bigger. You can, see better if it's a very big screen and it's too small.
Yeah, you as a user have control of your own user interface there. So in your browser, you can pinch and zoom. But from our perspective, we're not going to be feeding a different resolution until we overhaul the system as it is.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I see a question. Is Victron looking into digital switching? I assume this is a question from either an RV, mobile or RV or boat or similar application. And the answer is no. We're not looking into digital switching ourselves, but there are various, very nice and high quality digital switching systems available, both for OEMs to use as well as certain that are installable, more aftermarket. And we integrate, though there is not too much to integrate. Those systems can read, some of those brands and systems can read data from the Victron system, like battery state of charge, and then automatically do load shedding. And that's really where the useful integration ends. But no Victron digital switching.
We have a relevant question, Matthijs.
VRM.
Surprised, VRM. Surprised it's taken a while to see this one. The user's asking, is it possible to have alarm notifications sent as SMS messages?
We briefly touched on that. And same for WhatsApp. The frank answer is probably not, because it would incur quite significant and system-specific costs on our side. And then we would want to charge for that. And to charge for that, we need to set up a whole system with credit cards and so forth. And so far, out of the polls and checks we did, the interest in that is too low to now warrant the shift of attention there. Perhaps at some point, but for now it sticks to push.
Yeah, I would also say, add to that, there are possibilities for enthusiasts who really need this feature to do it themselves through third-party contacts. So it's not something that's managed direct through Victron, but it is possible to set up SMS notifications through third-party services. I know one that you can use is called If This Then That, and then you can use them and their service when they receive an email from a certain email address with a certain topic, then it can be sent as an SMS. So it's possible for the niche applications that really require this to do it, but for us in the short term, as I said, we don't have the infrastructure in place to support the per user costs that it would incur at this stage, so not going to be done.
Yeah, I miss that. Personally, I have to leave.
Well,
I want, but up to Guy and the rest to continue a bit more or not. But for me, I'd like to say thank you all for your interest, and it was really nice for me to do to be here, see all the questions. Would be even better to see all the faces, but that's impossible with 1,000 attendees. We do have a lot of registrations that then don't show up, Guy? So next
yeah.
time we don't have to close it again. That's a bit
It's
of
always the risk, but I think those who did register will also want to receive the recording. So maybe they can't be here now, but they wanted to say, yeah, I definitely want to get attention. So I think it's also fine.
Yeah, me too. It's a fact of it's just how it
Yeah,
goes.
and it's enough to come. I think we still had well over 1,000, so it's definitely worth everybody's time to make the effort. Thank you, Matthias. Yep, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, and we'll see you later.
Thank you all. Yeah, thanks, Guy.
Yes, thank you too. Still some questions. Lots of questions have nothing to do with VRM. I try to answer a couple. Like question for uploading settings. Oh, now the question is gone again. The question about configuring when you have production, you have multiple similar systems, and you want to copy the settings to all Serbo. That's being worked on, but could take a while still. So it's not a real answer, but it's being worked on.
Maybe one from my side. I've had a few questions on if there will be a remote console as an app. We don't have plans for it yet, but Guy, maybe you can say something about that.
Yeah, we mentioned a little bit about this. Yeah, it definitely has scope in the future. So as we're changing the way remote console is done, it definitely lends itself better towards being an app and a fast app at that. But for now, no, nothing to announce today. So it's definitely something we're looking at, making more accessible. And I think Alex also heard looking at making widget controls. So yeah, it's not its own app, but at least there's a faster button to get there for a specific installation. I think that is very achievable with the current technology we've got, and will come as an update to the VRM app, most likely, with an additional widget available.
Okay, thanks.
So I see another question here from Robert asking, it'd be nice to have an overview page for consumption production for the day on the GX Touch, something to swipe through and see. So similar to the current dashboard controls, but on the GX itself. Yeah, this is definitely something we're looking into and being aware of. It's not such an easy situation. So yeah, you kind of have to understand a little bit about how the background of the GX device works, and I'll explain it because, well, it's relevant here now. But for the most part, the GX device is not saving a lot of data on itself. It wants to push the data through to VRM and have the data stored on VRM. Now, if the GX device is not on the internet, it will save a buffer of data, which it will then, next time it's online, push to VRM. If you've got an external USB or an SD card inserted, then it will also save that stream of data that's being generated in there. But it's not expecting it to be there. It wants to push it to VRM, and by default pushes it to VRM. That's the way the whole structure of the data is set up. And it's not designed to read off it if it is there. So we are looking at bringing this interface, this dashboard interface, onto the GX itself. But it's going to be a significant reworking of how the data system works. And we haven't yet resolved it to say that it's definitely going to be there. So it might still come about that we stick to the current data model as is, but it's definitely getting attention. I think it would be really nice to have, especially for those who are off grid with no internet connectivity. Well, they miss out on a lot of advantages of the VRM and of that overview data view. I'm definitely sensitive to it and yeah, want to improve it.
This question from Jussie: is there a way to disable virtual switch from Serbo VX touchscreen instead of uploading a new configure? He's using a switch for dedicated ignore AC input. You might want to look into OS Large, because you can set up some more options. Instead of dedicated ignore AC input, you can select inverter mode for the inverter instead of normal on mode. Otherwise, besides that, you could use the generator start stop function of the GX wired to an input, an aux input on the inverter, and use that to ignore AC input. That's the old-fashioned way, but it still works.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good way. That loop around with the generator controls gives you pretty much the most flexibility possible.
Yeah, maybe I have one more question. If we continuing, I had some questions asking. Leon Potgieter asked, are they working on a system that you can click on a timetable when you use from grid/PV/battery or PV/battery/grid? We're not working on that currently, but Guy, do you have any ideas regarding
Yeah, I mean,
that?
it sounds cool, doesn't it? We're definitely looking at controls to better handle dynamic behavior based on other feedback. So whether that's time of use charges changing in different grid costs. So you definitely want to be charging during these times. You definitely don't want to be charging during these times. And then having that is even dynamic so that the stream of the cost can be used to make the decision. We're looking at those sort of integrations, and we have the control of the system to be able to do it. It's just how do we get that data into that system and be able to set the controls, and what's the user interface look like. What's being suggested there is something in the middle where, at the moment you can use the scheduled charging feature to control charge and discharge depending on what you want to do through the GX menu, but it's a little bit tedious if you have many different periods to handle that interface. So it's technically possible through there. This is a more elegant idea for how that could be visually handled. I think it's a good one. But we're looking at that as a whole system approach to make it completely dynamic, from data feeds to completely manually controlled. And again, something like Node-RED would perhaps give you another interface to that sort of graphical interface with deep programmability and customization of the Victron system. So you're not going to see anything out of us for any time soon regarding that. So I think if it's really an important feature to you, take the time next week to attend the Node-RED webinar, learn how that works, and then you can probably get a result quicker.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry. Yeah, one last question I'd like to answer. Jan Bakker asked, battery data available for longer than 5 years is important for warranty issues, but the real battery data is stored in the either BMV smart shunt or in the battery itself, and that's the total throughput, the amount of charges, highest, lowest voltage, and that's not something that's easy to find back on the data on the dashboard. So I'd always advise to use a battery monitor if you have a non-managed battery that doesn't track this. So guys, I also have to leave. Thank you all. And
thank you for your time. Yeah, thank you for your time, Daniel. Yeah.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so a question here, or a comment, I suppose, some feedback from Colin Smith regarding the uploading of settings from the Serbo GX. So they have production systems that are all identical. They produce anything from 5 to 20 systems on a bench. They take up so much time to go into each one, set the same settings, and the ability to upload the settings to a Serbo would save heaps of time, ensure that everything's consistent across their range. Yeah, we've actually come extremely close to releasing this feature in previous GX betas, so it's definitely something that's on the radar. It has limitations to some degree, but a great many number of the features were available. I'm not exactly sure why it got pulled, but there was some issue that prevented it from going into production. And it was even pulled out of the beta at that point as well. So there was some issue with that system that prevented it from being delivered. But I'd say, Colin, probably the best pathway forward for you to get that feature realized would be, if you aren't already in there, get into the modifications space in Victron Community and then access the beta GX device firmware and then push in that channel. Matthias, he reads that channel. He's active in there to make sure GX device firmware is being released in a stable way. And so it'd be interesting to find out, if you don't want to research why it got pulled and what needs to be done, it just needs work, then I'd say that'd be the next best thing to do, to get in there and push and see if it can get re-included for you. There's a question here from Ted asking, can frequency-related errors be displayed anywhere else other than the V bus monitor in V configure? Now, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by frequency-related error there, but you can definitely set your own parameters around customized alarms in VRM. So if you enter the alarm area of VRM, you can choose the parameters for which you get an alarm notification. So you can put precise frequencies in there if you like, and then it can send you an alarm notification from that. If you have any other more specific frequency-related error that's not just an out-of-spec, which can be set, but has to be set by you, has to be custom made by you, but you can do it. Please add more detail to the question. So a question from here regarding the Orion Smarts. So Orion Smart does not support Bluetooth Smart Networking, means you can't switch it off with DVCC and so on. There is definitely more improved feature and functionality coming for the Orions with Bluetooth, the Orion Smart series. Just like with the Victron lithium batteries, the smart batteries, which previously had no connectivity, we began to see features emerge in updates, especially around the live broadcast, live readout data. So you begin to see a whole fleet of batteries in one go. Those features will also be coming, some of those features will also be coming to the Orion. Now there are restrictions in the hardware of the Orion for what it can and can't do. So it doesn't have current control. So it's still, even with Bluetooth, smart networking will not be able to control the current. It's just not a limit feature of that product in the hardware at a hardware level. Some features are coming and improved features are coming, especially for those devices that don't have another hardware interface. So if Bluetooth their only control and communications interface, then we're definitely bringing more features to those products as a priority. Specific for that one, it may have to come as a new product release to have better current control, current monitoring, current control. So another question here from Patrick asking, are there plans to synchronize charger settings of an installation, e.g. charge voltage settings, so they don't have to be set individual? Application example, multi-plus MPPTs on a boat. Now, yeah, this is a somewhat complicated situation. We already do have some synchronized cross-device charge controls in there using the DVC system. Now, how that DVCC control happens, if there's something to call the shots, such as a managed lithium battery, then that will definitely already happen. So if the lithium battery says, here's the target charge voltage I want, then that will be expressed across the multi-plus, across the MPPTs, and they'll charge accordingly to those instructions. If there's nothing calling the shots, you can still do DVCC control to a degree, so you can set overriding current controls and things like that. You don't need necessarily to individually program current control on each device, although you still can if you want for some reason. But in terms of actually managing total system-wide charge voltages, unless it's coming from an external source, then you'll still need to program those on in the individual devices. Yeah, there's no plan to change that behavior. I think the current software control and the way it manages it with all the different integrations is sufficient in nearly all cases. Yeah, it can be an inconvenience if you have a system where you have to program it, but that's typically a once-off situation. And for those that do need that system-wide precise synchronization charge control, well, that can be done through a managed battery. Okay, another question. This one I've looked into just today from Rob Mason asking about VRM reporting on hybrid gensets. So they are great. They like them. Yep, we've heard that before, but is there a plan to add multiple sites to the reporting output for hybrid genset reporting on VRM to save a huge amount of data manipulation? Yep, we absolutely agree, and we absolutely are aware of this situation and hope to improve it. So the hybrid genset market is definitely something we're looking into improving the controls for, and yeah, that's a fleet operator looking at how we can make those people's lives as easy as possible with better controls for those larger systems. So Rob, yes, most definitely we'll be looking at how to do this. It's not that easy at the moment with the current setup. It's not just a straightforward thing, but we'll definitely work towards making it as possible. Okay, here's a good question. Alex, are you paying attention?
Yeah, sure.
It's from Mike Yon asking, more customizable alarm controls coming. So one user can have a different set of alarm rules to another user, e.g. only end users get critical alarms, but the installer can set up themselves for more detailed alarms.
Yes, so we received this request of having more fine-grained controls about what kind of alarms and what kind of push notifications you get. It's nothing on the roadmap at the moment, but seems to be a quite popular feature request. I think it's something to consider for sure. Yeah, what we can do or what users can do at the moment is have different alarm settings for different sites or groups of sites using the groups and teams features. But that's not for specific alarms, but for specific installations. If you manage a fleet, you can group them and then only enable alarms for that group of installations. But yeah, more specific controls for alarms is definitely something for the roadmap, something to look into.
Okay, another cool feature request here I hadn't considered from Stanilla asking, is there any chance to add DVC, the maximum charge current, as an option in the dashboard controls? And I would say also probably as an option in the widgets. So currently we have AC input current limit controls because that's already a very straightforward integration. But yeah, for those with DVCC, that's a similar and also useful feature. So I think it's definitely not available now, but I can see the utility of it as a feature request. It's one for you to note, Irene, for a future sprint, perhaps to look into making that easy.
We will. Thanks. I have one more question, Guy, from Jurjen Hoekstra. He asks if we could make the dashboard of your adjustable, because in the advanced tab, of course, you can move around your widgets and make enlargements, but you can't in the dashboard. Would you think that's a useful
Yeah, so
feature?
I mean, Matthias addressed this already previously. It is a common request. Look, I would personally also like it to a degree. As a test user, I have lots of things that build up in that dashboard, specifically lots of temperature monitors and everything. It'd be nice just to be able to hide them. The reality is that it's a development constraint, right? In how we build that dashboard, the time and feature set that we use, and the focus and priority from Victron is by far to make that dashboard as universally useful and simple to everybody as we can, as much as possible, rather than provide a open format customization area there and all the complications that can potentially cause for people. So yeah, the design philosophy at the moment is we make the advanced section as fully customizable and controllable and resizable and reshapeable as possible, and leave the dashboard to be as straightforward, automatic, useful, utilitarian as we can. And that's not going to change that philosophy. So at this stage, no, that's not going to be a
No.
possibility.
I think it
Yeah.
makes sense. And also
That's
to
the-
just add the things there, we want to be very, how do you say, critical on what we add on the dashboard. So it's useful
Right.
for everyone and not just a select group of users.
It is a design decision that we've consciously made, and aware of some people aren't going to like it, but I think in the balance of the whole platform and the users that use it, I think it's appreciated that the dashboard is the way that it is and that it works so well for nearly everybody. Now, and we put a lot of time into thinking about how can we make it as useful as possible. The counterpoint of that would be, okay, if everyone can make it the way they want, maybe we wouldn't be spending so much time thinking, well, how can we make the dashboard as good as we can, where users can just set it up how they like. And then most users aren't going to be setting it up the way they'll just leave it the way that it is, so that the default one won't be getting the attention that it currently gets and consideration. And the power users, well, they already have a lot of control available through advanced. Yeah. Really think the power user, if you are to the point where you're wanting to be starting to customize the dashboard, you look at Grafana, because then it's a free open slate. You can do so much more than we could ever offer on the VRM dashboard. And you'll be much more satisfied in terms of getting it the way you like it, with the colors and the fonts and the everything, the different types of graphs and charts and stuff. That's the answer. We have a solution for you. It's Grafana. It's not our solution, but it works.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Thanks. And maybe another one from Fabrice Franchot. He asks, as an EPC, we manage many customers and are looking for an easy way to customize VRM from one point, for example, in advanced mode, and then deploy it to all other customer profiles. So they want to create, yeah, I think you understand, right?
I do, and we have this feature. Yeah, it's a relatively new feature, and as far as I'm aware, it's relatively little used. So it is possible in the advanced mode of VRM to copy a layout from another site. So you can get messed up a bit. So it's important, if you can, to have your template design set up and fixed and permanent the way you like it, and then leave it, and then copy from that installation to your other ones. This becomes really powerful. Again, I don't think this is as widely used as it could be. It gets really powerful when you have teams and groups set up. So it does require someone on your side to be quite savvy with their IT knowledge and the structure that you have set up for VRM. Now, I have seen, and I'm hearing more about it. Yeah, I'll just say, we just went to the METS show in Amsterdam. And there I was talking to some users who have, hundreds of systems, and they're using VRM in ways that I had never considered them to be using it, which is something of a customer management tool, where for each of their installations, you can add photos to a site, you can add text descriptions to a text box, and you can also manage different groups of installations to different installers and different regions through that system. Now, it's powerful, and through that linkages, you can then do things like copy layouts of advanced widgets from one system to another and make it consistent. So that functionality is there. We can probably do more to demonstrate it and highlight it for people so they can see how it really works. As it is, it takes quite a bit of clicking around, and if you're a production system, I can understand why you don't want to be clicking around too much to learn how things behave. So I guess that's a note for us, Alex and Irene and myself, to maybe make some time to do some more promotion of these features and maybe some more screen recordings and a blog to better show how this works and some of the power user features that are available to make it easier. Not here today, I don't think, but there's also more work being done in general into the documentation of VRM. So we have an additional person, Stephanie, who's documenting that right now and will be published soon. So there'll be more options as these features get rolled out and VRM becomes a less, let's say, straight up intuitive platform and becomes more powerful, but also in some ways more complex. then the documentation also needs to reflect that. So that's also happening on our end. A question here from Robert asking about vConfigure. Are we ever going to release vConfigure for Mac OS? How long does he need to keep separate old Windows laptops just to be able to program his Quattros and Multis? Yeah, probably never, I have to say. In fact, I can say with certainty, we're never going to release vConfigure for Mac OS. But the hope is not lost. The long-term roadmap solution is to make Victron Connect as powerful as vConfigure is today, and to be able to do everything that you could do in vConfigure in Victron Connect. And then it's not just your Mac laptop or your PC laptop, but you can also do that on your Android phone if you can connect the MK3 USB dongle into the bottom of the phone. And then you can also control that remotely through, well, in the long run, through VRM and remote Victron Connect. So that is the long-term roadmap to make cross-platform compatibility available through all of our products. And yeah, it's constant work in progress, let's say. The best hope you have at the moment is our new range of multis, the Multi-RS range, has no V-bus port at all. So there's no vConfigure available for the Multi-RS. It's only available through vCAN and through Bluetooth and through vDirect. And so you are going to need to use Victron Connect to program that device. Now, at the moment, that actually means limitations relative to the multi-range for the Multi-RS because the features just aren't in Victron Connect yet, but they are being rolled out actively. And yeah, we're highly motivated. The Multi-RS has been a very successful product. I think it's a great product, and well, lacking some of those controls that you have in vConfigure in Victron Connect for one of our new flagships, that's not so good. So we're definitely onto the job. There's a question here, it's now also quite old, from Ted. I don't know if you're still here, Ted, but asking about the Serbo GX and PV inverters being connected to L2 and L3 as being incorrectly or inaccurately shown as L1 or not getting shown at all. This is definitely a known limitation, let's say, and yeah, definitely work is being put into it. I actually thought that this had been addressed in a recent firmware update. No, now I'm thinking about it, it's not, and it's the last comment I read from Matthias was that it's not actually that easy to solve what this issue is. So when you have vInverter on a different phase than L1. Yeah, Alex, you have a comment?
There was some improvements on that, especially in VRM. It requires the latest Venus OS version, I think 2.9 plus. And yeah, we improved a bit how the dashboard looks when you have, one PV inverter for each phase or only on L2, for example. There were some improvements there. It's still probably not complete if you're saying that some things are not included yet, but we are aware of the issue and trying to improve it even further.
Okay, cool. We're coming up to midday. That's some 2 hours in the webinar. Still got 400 participants, still 80 open questions, but we've answered over 300. So I think that's a good effort. Thanks everyone who's made the time and is still here. I really appreciate you guys contributing. The panelists are all up here as well, answering all those questions, all those hundreds of questions. Also, yeah, Matthias, he's not here anymore, but him taking the time to be here, I think it really reflects well on VRM and the commitment John has to the platform that we get his time and his interest in this. Irene and Alex both know that Matthias is extremely hands-on in VRM and its rollout and takes it extremely seriously and cares. He uses it himself too, of course, which is always a good test of a product, as we all do. So yeah, thank you to him, and also thank you to Alex, Irene, Christo, and Tom, who are from the VRM development team, who have been working consistently on improving this product. I think it's really testament to show the interest that we get to events like this, that people are really keen to see how VRM is working and what's happening next and how they can make the most of it. So yeah, hope it's motivating to you guys as well to stay on track with this path. Thank you to the sales managers who are still here, Bob, David, Terry, and also Martijn's not a sales manager, but he's from Victron R&D in the chat answering all the questions. And Warwick, thank you. I didn't mention it as well, but community member, very well, more than a member, community volunteer who's been a consistent high quality contributor for many years now. Thank you for taking the time to come as well. And I presume you've been answering questions there. Good to see you. And thanks for your time. To everyone else, thank you so much for making the time available. And I'll make sure that this gets edited and sent out to the 1,500 who registered but didn't attend that are hopefully still interested in the information. If you've got any other questions, please take them to your distributors, installers, eventually your Victron sales managers, or the Victron community. If they're related to Node-RED, please register for that upcoming webinar next week, or talk about that in the modifications space inside Victron community. That's all from us. I will end the webinar for all. Apologies if your question didn't get answered. Again, please take this minute now to find it, copy it, and send it over to community or one of the other channels. Thanks all very much for your time.
Thanks, Guy.
Thank you, Guy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.